I waited until they were gone. Then I changed every single lock and installed security cameras in every corner. If you're watching this, hit subscribe, and tell me where you're tuning in from. Because what I'm about to tell you, you won't believe. I'm Margaret Stevens, 63, recently widowed, and until a few months ago, naive enough to think my son Kevin and his wife Rebecca cared about me. After my husband Henry died, they were so loving, so attentive, calling daily, visiting often, asking about my future. "Mom," Kevin said one afternoon, taking my hand gently, "you need something new. Something to look forward to." Rebecca nodded sweetly. "We just want you to be happy again." At the time, I thought they meant it. I didn't realize they were eyeing Henry's life insurance payout. Their smiles hid calculation. When I mentioned the insurance check, their eyes lit up like Christmas lights. "You should invest in something solid," Rebecca suggested. "Maybe real estate." Kevin agreed right away. "Something that gives you purpose and security." A week later, I saw the mansion on Elm Street. A gorgeous Victorian, wraparound porch, 6 bedrooms, gleaming hardwood floors. It looked like the perfect family home. I imagined holidays there, the grandchildren playing, laughter echoing through the halls. The price was high, but Henry's insurance covered it. And for once, my instincts whispered something, "Keep this quiet." So I did. I bought it under a trust, hired contractors, and spent 6 weeks transforming it. New paint, garden, kitchen, everything perfect for the big reveal. I wanted to surprise Kevin and Rebecca, to hand them the keys and say, "This is our new family home." I pictured tears of joy, hugs, promises of family dinners. But fate had other plans. That morning, I arrived early for the final check. The house sparkled. I called Kevin, practically trembling with excitement. "Can you and Rebecca meet me for lunch? I have something amazing to show you." He hesitated. "Actually, Mom, we're out looking at houses today. Found a Victorian we love, great for our family expansion." "Family expansion?" I asked. "Rebecca's parents," he explained. "They wanted a place big enough for everyone." I smiled. "Perfect timing, right?" "That's wonderful, honey. Where are you looking?" "This beautiful place on Elm Street," he said. "But it's way out of our range." My stomach turned. They were talking about my house. Trying not to laugh, I said, "What if I helped with the down payment? Consider it an early inheritance." Kevin's tone instantly brightened. "Mom, that would be incredible." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure," I said softly. "Text me the address, I'll meet you there." I sat alone in that beautiful kitchen, staring at the phone. This could actually work. Instead of just gifting them the house, I could make them feel like they'd chosen it. But when I arrived at Elm Street, my smile vanished. Rebecca was already in the front yard, pacing like she owned the place. She was on her phone, pointing toward my new flower beds. "Yes, we'll change that to a gazebo, oh, and the master suite layout will be perfect." Kevin joined her, tape measure in hand, discussing furniture placement. They weren't prospective buyers, they were owners planning renovations. I parked across the street and watched in disbelief. When they finally waved me over, I played along, pretending to see it for the first time. Rebecca gave me the grand tour of my own home. "Look at this kitchen, Mom," she said, stroking the marble counters I'd picked. "I can already imagine hosting dinner parties here." She led me upstairs. "This will be perfect for Kevin and me," she said, proudly opening the door to my master bedroom. "Your room could be next to the guest bath." I smiled politely, but inside, my blood ran cold. That day, I learned just how far family greed can reach. So when they left that evening, dreaming of moving in, I changed the locks, updated the alarm system, and installed cameras. Now every corner of that house is under my watch. And if you're watching this video, remember, sometimes, the people closest to you aren't family, they're just waiting for your keys. Small but adequate. That's how Rebecca described my room, the one she was planning to stick me in. Kevin nodded eagerly. The layout's perfect, Mom. You'd love it here, quiet community, friendly neighbors, park within walking distance. I smiled, pretending to share their excitement, but inside, my mind was racing. They weren't imagining me as a homeowner, I was being slotted in as the aging relative who should be grateful for a small corner of their dream house. And the money? My inheritance, Henry's life insurance, would become their down payment, their investment, their equity. Rebecca strolled toward the kitchen, her tone suddenly thoughtful. The only challenge, she said, is that the sellers want cash. No financing. Something about a trust. Kevin sighed dramatically. Even with Mom's help, we'd need the full price up front. It would drain her entire inheritance just for a down payment, and we still couldn't qualify for a mortgage. Rebecca let out a theatrical sigh. It's so close to perfect, and just out of reach. They looked heartbroken. I could have told them the truth right then, that they already owned the house without spending a penny. But a part of me wanted to see what they'd do next. What if we looked at something smaller? I offered gently. Something more realistic for our budget. Rebecca's eyes hardened. Margaret, this house is perfect for our needs. Kevin's father would have wanted us to use his money wisely, to invest in our future. This is exactly the kind of thing he'd have encouraged. Her words hit like a slap. Using Henry's memory to justify taking everything he'd left me, and she said our needs while planning to tuck me in the smallest room. You're right, I said slowly. Henry would want us to make smart choices. Let me think overnight. That night, I sat at my dining table, staring at the property deed. My name, Margaret Stevens, printed clearly as the legal owner. Hours earlier, I'd wanted to surprise them with this home. Now, I wasn't sure if they deserved even my trust. The next morning, before I finished my coffee, Kevin called. His tone was bright, rehearsed. Mom, we've been thinking about that house all night. Rebecca barely slept. We really believe this could be the fresh start our family needs. I stayed calm. It's a beautiful house, Kevin. Well, he continued quickly, we stopped by again this morning. There's another family interested. The realtor said they might put in an offer today. I almost laughed out loud. There was no other family. I owned that house. Kevin was lying, trying to pressure me into a quick decision. That's unfortunate, I said evenly. Mom, we need to move fast. If you're serious about helping us, we have to make an offer today, full price, cash. That's my entire inheritance, I reminded him. Think of it as an investment, he said smoothly. Property values are climbing. You'd have family nearby to take care of you as you get older. Take care of me, in a small spare room, while they built wealth off my money. Let me call the realtor myself, I said finally. If I'm investing $350,000, I need to speak to them directly. Kevin hesitated. Mom, Rebecca's already handling it. She has a good rapport with the agent. Maybe let her continue. I cut him off. Kevin, if I'm writing the check, I make the call. After hanging up, I called my property manager. Sarah, I said calmly, list the house again, same price, same terms. And if anyone asks about it, tell them the previous offer fell through. She sounded confused. But, Mrs. Stevens, you own the house. Why list it again? Because, I said quietly, I want to see how far my family is willing to go to manipulate me. 2 hours later, Kevin called back, sounding triumphant. Great news, Mom. The other family's offer fell through. The house is still available, but we need to move fast. A cold realization washed over me. My own son was lying, inventing fake offers and urgency to drain my savings on something that already belonged to me. Wonderful, I said sweetly. Let's meet the realtor tomorrow. All three of us. Kevin hesitated again. Actually, Rebecca thinks it might be better if you just wire the money first. Then we'll handle the details. Of course she did. The next morning, I woke up to a text message, the most manipulative one I've ever received. Mom, I'm so sorry. The sellers accepted another offer. Rebecca's heartbroken. She really thought this was our chance for a family home, and a place for you to be safe and close to us. I guess it just wasn't meant to be. I sat there, reading it in my kitchen, surrounded by moving boxes. Kevin thought he'd lost the house, but he didn't know that I was already moving in. And when they came knocking, expecting sympathy, they'd find the locks changed, the lights on, and the cameras rolling. Because sometimes, the only way to protect what's yours, is to stop pretending family means the same thing to everyone. I had spent the previous evening packing. Not to move into the mansion with them, but to move into it alone. When Rebecca texted me the bad news, I replied politely. That's disappointing. I'm sure something else will come along. Less than an hour later, she called me. Her voice was thick with tears that sounded remarkably fake to my now skeptical ears. Margaret, I'm so sorry. I know how excited you were about the house too. Kevin told me you were looking forward to the garden, and the big kitchen for holiday dinners. Interesting. I had never mentioned being excited about anything specific. She was projecting what she thought I should feel. These things happen, Rebecca, I said evenly. The realtor said the other buyers might back out. Sometimes deals fall through at the last minute. If you're still interested in helping us, we could stay in contact with the agent. See if it becomes available again. I almost admired her persistence, create false hope, keep me emotionally invested, maintain the possibility that my money could still buy their dream house. I'll think about it, I told her. That afternoon I drove to the mansion one last time before moving in. I wanted to savor the moment of walking through the front door as the rightful owner, not the elderly mother being granted the smallest bedroom. But as I turned onto Elm Street, my heart stopped. Rebecca's car was in the driveway. I parked at the end of the block and watched. Rebecca was walking around the house with an older woman I didn't recognize, pointing at windows, gesturing toward the garden areas, clearly giving a tour. They spent 20 minutes outside before Rebecca unlocked the front door with a key I definitely had not given her. A key she had, to a house she thought we'd lost to other buyers. I sat in my car, fury building with each passing minute. She was showing my house to someone, using a key she had somehow obtained, barely hours after telling me we'd lost our chance to buy it. Then she brought out a measuring tape. They were measuring my living room, my dining room, my kitchen. Planning furniture arrangements for a house Rebecca thought belonged to someone else, unless she knew something I didn't. Unless this whole charade about other buyers was covering something much worse. I called the property management company. Sarah, has anyone contacted you about accessing the Elm Street property? No, Mrs. Stevens, you're the only one with keys. What about showing it to potential buyers? The listing was taken down yesterday when you asked us to. No one else should have access. But someone did have access. Someone was in my house right now, planning God knows what. I made a decision that would change everything. I drove home, called a locksmith, and had every lock on the mansion changed within 2 hours. Then I called a security company and had cameras installed at every entrance, inside and out. If Rebecca wanted to play games with my property, she was going to discover I could play them better. The locksmith was expensive. The security system was expensive. But watching Rebecca try to use her mysterious key on my front door the next morning, Priceless. I was sitting in the living room, boxes unpacked, coffee in hand, when I heard someone trying to unlock the front door. My security app showed Rebecca on the porch looking confused as her key failed to work. She tried it several times, then walked around to the back door. Same result. Then she called Kevin. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I could see her gesturing angrily at the house, clearly frustrated that her secret access had been cut off. 20 minutes later Kevin called me. Mom, the strangest thing happened. Rebecca drove by that house we were looking at, and she thinks someone might have changed the locks. She's worried there might be squatters or vandalism. I asked the obvious question. Why would Rebecca be checking on a house we don't own? A pause. She thought she saw broken windows from the street. She was just being a good neighbor. The lies were getting more elaborate, but they were still lies. Rebecca hadn't seen broken windows because there weren't any. She had been trying to access my house with a key she shouldn't have had. Kevin, I asked, how did Rebecca get a key to that house? Another pause. Longer this time. What key? She tried to unlock the front door this morning. I saw her on the security cameras. Silence. Then Kevin's voice, carefully controlled. Mom, what security cameras? The ones I had installed yesterday. On my house. The house I own. The sound that came through the phone might have been Kevin choking on his coffee. Or it might have been the sound of someone's entire deception collapsing in real time. Your house, his voice was barely a whisper. Yes. The house I bought 6 weeks ago with Henry's life insurance money. The house I've been renovating while you and Rebecca planned to manipulate me into funding your dream home with my inheritance. The silence stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. Finally, he spoke. Mom, we need to talk. Yes, Kevin, I said. My voice was calm now. Steady. We do. We certainly do. But before anything else, you need to explain to your wife that trespassing on private property isn't some clever adventure, it's a crime. Even if she thought she could outsmart everyone, the law doesn't work that way. That evening, I sat alone in my new dining room, surrounded by unopened boxes, eating takeout Chinese food off paper plates. It wasn't the celebration dinner I'd imagined. I was supposed to be hosting Kevin and Rebecca, raising a glass to their new home and to our bright future as a family. Instead, I sat there watching my security footage of my daughter-in-law trying to break into my house, while my son prepared to explain how they had planned to manipulate me out of my own inheritance. But here's the thing about hitting rock bottom: once you've been there, the view from the top is much sweeter when you climb back up on your own. Kevin arrived right on time, 8 p.m. sharp, looking like he'd aged 5 years since our last call. Rebecca wasn't with him. That told me everything I needed to know about who had really been steering this scheme. Mom, he said softly, sitting down heavily in the new armchair I'd bought, the one meant for elderly guests. I don't even know where to start. How about starting with how your wife got a key to my house? I asked calmly. He looked down, ashamed. She befriended Sarah's assistant, the property manager's helper. Told her she was your daughter-in-law and that you'd asked her to check on the renovation while you were grieving. The assistant believed her and gave her a key. I took a slow breath. So Rebecca has been monitoring my house purchase for weeks. He nodded. She found out 3 days after I signed the papers. The bank called to verify the wire transfer, and Rebecca answered my phone. She told them she was my financial power of attorney. I felt a strange sense of calm. I never gave her power of attorney. I know, Kevin said, rubbing his face. But the bank didn't ask for proof. She got enough information to figure out what you'd done. I poured myself a glass of wine. My hand didn't shake. 6 months ago, this kind of betrayal would have shattered me. Now it only confirmed what I'd begun to suspect, that I was better off standing on my own. So instead of asking me for help, you decided to manipulate me into paying for your mortgage on a house I already owned? Kevin's eyes filled with tears. It was Rebecca's idea. She said if we confronted you directly, you might get defensive about spending so much money. She thought if you believed it was our idea to buy the house, you'd feel better about helping us. Helping you buy a house from myself? I asked, my voice cold. He swallowed hard. She figured you wouldn't want to live there alone forever. Maybe one day you'd move into a smaller place, and we could buy the house from you at a fair price. Everyone would win. I stared at him, my son, the boy I raised to tell the truth, and saw a stranger. Kevin, you realize that's fraud, right? It's not a misunderstanding, it's a crime. He buried his face in his hands. We never meant for it to go that far. Rebecca just got carried away. She started planning everything. She wanted to show you how perfect the house would be for all of us. All of us, I said slowly, with me tucked away in the smallest bedroom. He didn't answer. So I pulled out my phone and showed him the footage, Rebecca trying multiple keys, peeking through my windows, calling him in frustration. This wasn't part of the plan either, was it? The next morning, my phone rang. It was Rebecca, the first time she'd called me directly in months. Her voice had lost its usual sugary tone. Margaret, she said sharply, Kevin told me about your little revelation. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Oh, I understand perfectly, I said. You've been plotting to defraud me. That's a harsh word, she replied. We were just trying to find a solution that worked for everyone. I almost laughed. A solution where you get a mansion, and I get a small bedroom, while paying your mortgage? You're twisting our intentions, she snapped. We never wanted to hurt you. Rebecca, I said firmly, you answered my phone pretending to have legal control over my finances. You obtained my house keys under false pretenses. You showed my property to people without permission. Which part of that was meant to help me? There was a long pause, then her voice changed completely, no sweetness, no apology, just cold bitterness. Fine, she said. You want to play hardball. You bought that house just to manipulate us. You knew we were looking in that area. You wanted to dangle it in front of us and then take it away. The accusation was so absurd, I actually laughed. Rebecca, I bought that house as a surprise gift for your family. I was going to hand you the deed and tell you it was yours. Right, she scoffed. That's why you kept it a secret for 6 weeks. I kept it secret because I wanted it to be perfect, I said quietly. I had contractors working around the clock to make sure everything was ready, for your family. And that was the truth. But by then, the damage was done. Sometimes betrayal doesn't destroy you, it clears your path. And that night, as I sat back in my living room with a calm heart and steady hands, I realized something. Peace is worth far more than any house, any inheritance, or any illusion of family harmony. Rebecca's pause stretched long over the phone before she finally said, "Prove it." I blinked. "Prove what?" "That you bought that house as a gift," she snapped. "Show me paperwork that says you meant to give it to Kevin." That's when I understood. Rebecca had never believed I was capable of kindness without expecting something in return. In her world, generosity was always a trap, and affection was just another form of control. "I don't need to prove my intentions to you," I said slowly, "but I can prove you trespassed on my property." She laughed, bitter and sharp. "Kevin's your son. Family has a right. Family has a right to respect boundaries," I cut in. "You lost that right the moment you lied and schemed instead of talking honestly." The line went dead. Rebecca had hung up. 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. "Kevin." "Mom, Rebecca's really upset," he said softly. "She feels like you're punishing her for caring about our family's future." "Kevin," I said, my patience thinning, your wife committed multiple crimes. She's not the victim here. He sighed. Can't we all just sit down and talk this through? Make it work somehow. I looked around my house, the one I'd bought with love, with hope, and realized how many times I'd sacrificed my peace just to keep everyone else comfortable. Kevin, I said quietly, I'm done making things work for everyone else at my own expense. For the next 2 weeks, my phone didn't stop ringing. Morning, Kevin. Afternoon, Rebecca. Sometimes together in the evening, always the same pattern. Guilt, bargaining, anger, and then guilt again. Until one morning Kevin said, Mom. Rebecca's pregnant. The words hit like a stone to the chest. Pregnant? She just found out, he said. We weren't going to tell anyone yet, but with everything going on. His tone carried that familiar weight, not excitement, but strategy. Congratulations, I said evenly. I'm happy for you both. Thanks, Mom. It's just, with a baby coming, we really need more space. Rebecca's morning sickness is bad, and she's worried about the stress. And there it was, the pregnancy card, played at the perfect moment. Kevin, there are many beautiful houses in your price range, I replied. But Mom, this one, your house, it's perfect. Rebecca already picked out nursery colors. She's emotionally invested in a house she tried to steal from me, I said flatly. She didn't try to steal anything. She just got excited. I hung up. Then I called my lawyer. He listened carefully, then said, Mrs. Stevens, from what you've told me, your daughter-in-law may have committed fraud, identity theft, and trespassing. Would you like to press charges? I hesitated, thinking about my unborn grandchild. Not yet, I said. But document everything. Just in case. That evening, there was a knock on my door. Rebecca. She looked pale, genuinely pale, and exhausted. For the first time in months, her voice shook. Margaret, can we talk? Just us. No Kevin. No lawyers. Against my better judgment, I let her in. I'm sorry, she whispered, sitting on the edge of my couch. I handled everything wrong. When I found out about the house, I panicked. Kevin and we're in worse shape financially than we told you. His business is failing. We're behind on rent. I haven't worked since the wedding. It was the first honest thing she'd said in months. Then why not just ask for help? I asked. Because you've already done so much. The car repairs, the down payment on our last place, Christmas. I was embarrassed to ask for more. I nodded slowly. So instead of asking, you decided to trick me. Tears welled up. I thought if I made it seem like your idea to help us, you'd feel proud instead of pressured. I didn't mean to hurt you. Her apology should have softened me, but it didn't. It only made me angrier. Because beneath every word was that same assumption, that I was too fragile to handle the truth. Rebecca, I said quietly, I've been managing my feelings for 63 years. I don't need you to protect me from my own generosity. She nodded, sniffling. I know that now. I made a mistake. You made several, I said. Identity theft, fraud, trespassing, and lying to my son. Rebecca flinched. Kevin doesn't know about all of it. I froze. What doesn't he know? She looked around the room, her eyes darting from the photos on the mantel to the chandelier above. He doesn't know that I was planning to convince you to sign the house over to us, as an early inheritance. For tax purposes. My heart sank. That cold, heavy kind of realization that tells you the betrayal isn't over, it's just deepening. In that moment, I knew Rebecca's apology wasn't about remorse. It was about damage control. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to let her control the damage anymore. Explain, I said quietly. Rebecca took a deep breath. My uncle's an accountant. He said if you gave us the house now, instead of leaving it to Kevin in your will, it would save thousands in estate taxes. I thought after we'd lived here together for a while, I could bring it up casually. Her voice trembled, but her words were cold. The scheme was more elaborate than I'd imagined. Rebecca hadn't just wanted to trick me into funding their mortgage, she'd wanted to manipulate me into giving up ownership entirely. And if I'd refused? I asked. She looked down. Then I would have suggested that since you're getting older, it might be smart to transfer assets to family, to protect them from nursing home costs. Each word hit harder than the last. Rebecca had researched ways to separate me from my own property, planned entire conversations designed to make me believe her scheme was my idea. Rebecca, I said slowly, do you realize that what you're describing is elder financial abuse? She froze. That's not what this was. What else would you call systematically planning to trick an elderly relative into signing over valuable assets? I was trying to help our family, she insisted. No, I said. You were trying to help yourself at my expense. Silence filled the room. Outside, I could hear children laughing at the park, normal families living honest lives without manipulation or deceit. Finally, she whispered, what happens now? Now, I said, you and Kevin figure out your housing situation without my money or my property. You learn to budget. Get second jobs if you must. And that baby, I paused, will grow up with parents who understand the difference between asking for help and committing fraud. Rebecca started to cry. Not pretty tears, but deep, broken sobs. Margaret, please. I know I messed up, but we can fix this. You could live here, we could pay rent, everyone wins. I looked at her, this woman who'd spent months plotting against me, and shook my head. Rebecca, the fact that you think I should trust you with anything tells me you still don't understand what you've done. 6 months later, I hosted my first dinner party in that mansion. Not for Kevin or Rebecca, they'd moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment across town, finally learning how to live within their means. Not for her parents either, they'd found other arrangements once Rebecca's grand plans collapsed. No, I hosted dinner for my neighbors. The couple next door who brought me flowers when I moved in. The widow across the street who invited me to her book club. And the young family at the end of the block, whose kids sometimes helped me carry groceries. In 6 months, these strangers had shown me more genuine kindness than my own family had in years. Kevin and I were rebuilding, slowly. He called every Sunday, awkward at first, but honest. He'd apologized, sought counseling, and was finally starting to understand how easily manipulation can disguise itself as love. Rebecca and I remained distant. She'd had a healthy baby girl, my granddaughter, and I visited once a month under Kevin's supervision. She was civil, but her eyes still held that same resentment, that belief that I'd overreacted, that I should have been grateful for her plans. But the real revelation came from my lawyer. Mrs. Stevens, he said, you should know, this isn't Rebecca's first time. 5 years ago, her grandmother signed over her house to Rebecca's parents under nearly identical circumstances. They pressured her with talk about taxes and family protection. Afterward, the grandmother ended up in a state nursing home. The family sold her house immediately after the funeral. I sat there, speechless. Rebecca hadn't stumbled into deceit, she'd inherited it. Learned it. Perfected it. And I realized how close I'd come to the same fate. If I hadn't kept my house purchase secret, if I hadn't installed those cameras, if I'd been just a little more trusting, I might have ended up exactly like her grandmother. Instead, I sat in my beautiful dining room, surrounded by people who cared for me because they chose to, not because they wanted something from me. My phone buzzed. A text from Kevin. Mom, Rebecca wanted me to ask if you'd consider being the baby's guardian if something happens to us. I stared at the message for a long time. Then typed, "I'll consider it if Rebecca completes a financial literacy course and commits to family therapy for at least a year." His reply came fast. "She says that's unnecessary. She just needs a yes or no." I deleted the conversation, put my phone down, and went back to planting my garden. Some people never learn. But some of us learn just enough to save ourselves, and sometimes, that's the only victory that matters. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and share your own story below. Your voice matters.